Joining us now is Major Ronald Martin, a United States Army Reserve who served 3 tours in Afghanistan. And we're also joined by Dennard, a political commentator. I want to welcome you both to BNC Live. It's a pleasure to have you both. Major Martin, first, of course, we want to thank you for your service, sir, before we start this interview. And with that being said, I want to know, as a fellow serviceman, what did you take from President Biden's remarks last night?
Well, the remarks were strong and appropriate. They hit on some key points that we will continue to try to evacuate all the people that need to be evacuated and want to be evacuated. We will hold those accountable who attacked us. And I hope that we continue to send that strong message, show resolve, and continue our mission.
All right. And Mr. Dennard, what do you think?
I thought it was too little too late. Joe Biden have spoken immediately to the American people. It is because of his feckless foreign policy that we got ourselves into this quagmire in Afghanistan. Our hearts, our prayers, our thoughts are with the American families who have lost now their loved ones because of that terrorist attack, and those Christians who are being persecuted in Afghanistan because of the Taliban, those women who are now subjected to human sex trafficking and being raped and forced into the dark ages in terms of where they could be. It is a mess, to put it very bluntly, in Afghanistan right now, and that lies at the feet of Joe Biden and his administration.
And Major Martin, did you think we'd be here? I mean, we're about to approach the 20-year mark since 9/11. Do you think we still be counting bodies of servicemen in Afghanistan? One of the deadliest days in a decade?
Yes, all history shows that it's necessary to be there. I don't agree with his assessment that it's on President Biden. This deal was made with President Trump, and he chose to deal with a group that's not the official sanctioned government of that country. So and they're a known terrorist group. What he did do is he gave them relevancy and their attempt to be recognized throughout the internationally. And so what he did is he basically validated them and invalidated the formal provincial government. And that was a mistake he made. President Biden is just stuck in having to deal with the backlash from that, and then it's a lose-lose situation on it. He pointed out, him and President Trump agreed with that, but again, you chose with a non-government entity, and in doing that, you slap the provincial government in the face, slap our own allies in the face, because we chose to deal with them exclusively without dealing with our coalition partners, let them know our plans.
Mr. Dennard, did you want to respond?
Yeah, that's completely not true. First of all, President Trump's deal was a conditional agreement. Conditional agreement. If conditions changed, if the conditions on the ground changed, if the Taliban did not live up to their side of the agreement, things would have been different. And so I just think it's laughable at this point that Joe Biden is now the president of the United States and is now somehow claiming that he's unable to undo or change something that President Trump did, when the first 7 months of his presidency, all he's been doing is reversing and undoing the things that President Trump did, whether it was border security, having a secure border, whether it was the Keystone Pipeline, whether the Paris Climate Accord, the Iran nuclear agreement. And now when you look at, when you get to Afghanistan, all of a sudden Joe Biden is incapable of changing something that he thinks President Trump did, even though what President Trump did was a conditional agreement. I just think if Joe Biden really wanted to do something and be a leader and actually do what needs to be done in Afghanistan, he could have done it, and he should have done it. He claims the buck stops with him. He's the president. He needs to fix this crisis, this problem, this quagmire, this disastrous exit that he has created. He has to solve it. He has to fix it because he's the president.
Major Martin, what's your response? I mean, you were on the ground there.
It's easy to say that it's the president's fault, but again, President Trump chose to deal with an entity that wasn't the official government. He chose to do it without consulting our coalition partners who we worked with for 20 years. So to say that he had any responsibility, it's disingenuous. And again, the problem is when this is a coalition, it's always been a coalition of forces working in that area. We're the largest force, and when we chose not to include our NATO partners in our plans, and we chose to deal with a terrorist organization vying for legitimacy, and we chose to deal with them, we alienated our own allies, specifically the provincial government. So I don't know. We're going to have to disagree on whose fault it is, but the bottom line is that we still have a mission to get our folks out of Afghanistan. We probably will have to go back in at some point because we cannot allow terrorism to take root again in that area.
All right, former President Trump, he spoke on the attack, better yet, and it was released on Fox News. Here's a little of what the former president had to say. Let's take a listen together.
This tragedy should never have taken place. It should never have happened, and it would not have happened if I were your president.
All right, Mr. Dennard, what's your reaction to that strong assumption from the former president?
Strong, resolute, clear. That's the type of leadership that the American people expect. It's the type of leadership that the global community wants and demands. President Trump is right. That would not have happened under his watch because, again, he had a conditional agreement. And if Joe Biden is the president right now, which he is, then he has to accept full responsibility. He already said the buck stops with him. And he has to expect that the blame for this catastrophe is going to lie at his desk. And it does. If Joe Biden wanted to talk about this coalition and build this coalition, he had 7 months to do it because he came into the White House talking about withdrawing and getting out of Afghanistan and ending that war. He knew exactly what was going to happen if he had no policy, no effective way to exit out of Afghanistan. If he wanted to build a coalition government or have a coalition of people working with him to do something, if he wanted to do something different, he could have done it, but he chose not to. And he chose not to listen to his generals. He tried to go at it alone the way he wanted this to happen. And now he has to pay the consequences for it.
Well, Mr. Dennard, I just want to say, it's worth noting the president did take responsibility yesterday. So I just wanted to state that fact. Major Martin, we'll give you the final word, sir.
Okay, thank you. Again, Mr. Dennard, it's easy to talk about what President Trump would have done. He's not in office now. It's easy for him to say that it wouldn't have happened on his watch. Trump. But I beg. So again, when you choose to deal with a terrorist organization, he chose to do. Whether you have certain contingencies or certain earmarks or points, it doesn't make a difference. You're dealing with you're dealing with a organization that's not trustworthy. And so if you're going to say my conditions are this and X, Y, and Z, they can always say they do that and don't do that. So it's disingenuous again to blame it all on President Biden. This is a situation that was going to happen no matter what. When we chose to pull out troops, this was going to happen. It's an opportunity for one to be in a world.
Okay. All right. It seems as if we lost Major Martin. Oh, he's back. All right, Major Martin, we're glad to have you back.
My apologies.
No, don't worry about it.
So
listen, this is live TV. These things happen. But we got one more question I want to get in.
I'm sorry.
So you spoke of, before we lost you, you mentioned trustworthy. So let's talk about trust. Mr. Dennard, we're now relying on the Taliban to assist us in our evacuations. What's your thought?
We can't trust the Taliban because they are an organization by which is people from getting to the airport. They are attacking women and attacking Christians. This is a terrible situation. And when it comes to trustworthiness, the American people don't trust President Biden and his dealings with this. There's been recent polling that shows him underwater in terms of his support for his handling of Afghanistan and this exit. And so all around the globe, when you look at the issue of trustworthiness, that's a big problem right now, because I don't think the American people trust the Biden administration to handle this, and we can't trust the Taliban. But you know what? We're left with no choice, because now the Taliban controls all of Afghanistan, and the Biden administration is having to listen and do what they tell them. They're being dictated to by the Taliban.
All right. Well, since we're talking about trust, it's also worth noting that the former president also trusted the Taliban. Major Martin, what are your thoughts? Let's see if you two gentlemen
you hit it right on the head. You hit it right on the head. The former president chose to trust the Taliban. So to again blame President Biden for something that was initiated in a previous administration, you're dealing with the same group. So the difference is what? President Trump made a deal with this organization, knowing that they weren't trustworthy, knowing that his advisors told him they weren't trustworthy, but he chose to do it anyway. And he chose to do it without consulting our coalition partners who are actually operating in the area. So again, I say to you that there's a lot of blame to be passed around, but this does not fall all on President Biden. And this problem will exist even after we pull out.
So the bigger question is how much blame does Biden have as being the commander in chief right now? He could have done some different tactics and different things to get out of the deal. He could have changed it. He could have built a coalition. So how much blame does he deserve? When he says, I'm going to be, the buck stops with me, he is the president right now. And moving forward, he's going to be the president. He's going to have to deal with the fallout from his decision and not leaving Afghanistan. Everyone agreed that that's a good thing to do. American people support that. But the way that we left, you cannot continue to sit here and blame President Trump for the way in which this catastrophe happened. So how much blame goes to Joe Biden? What is he responsible for?
All right. Well,
what is his leadership?
Well, Mr. Dennard, we're going to let Major Martin reply to you, and then that's going to be in my time, gentlemen.
So you're right. As the president, he is ultimately responsible for every life lost. That's unfortunate, but it's true. You're absolutely correct. But again, I say to you that in dealing with a known organization, not central government, which we partnered with for 20 years, then you have what you have. You eroded confidence in our ability to be good partners, and you allow the Taliban timeline are planning the takeover of the country, which they ultimately were going to do as soon as we left. So once he struck that agreement, he gave the Taliban everything they needed to do to strategically take over the country. So, and that doesn't fall on President Biden. That falls on President Trump.
All right, that's the final word. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Dennard and Major Martin. It was a pleasure and a very insightful conversation, to say the least.